So I'm going to take a look at what happens if we have a fraction as a coefficient, or what does that look like, and how do we remove a fraction? Now, a fraction is a division statement where the numerator is being divided by the denominator. So again, any fraction that you see, we can simplify it and solve for it by taking the numerator and dividing by the denominator. Okay. When a fraction is used as a coefficient, so remember that a coefficient is the number that is in front of the variable. Coefficient. It's the number that's in front of the variable. It's the number which is being multiplied to the variable, so to speak. The numerator is multiplied to the variable. So we're still doing some multiplying there to the variable, and then divided by the denominator. So what we're doing in essence is taking the numerator, multiplying by the variable, and then dividing by the denominator. What that means is if we're trying to solve for our variable, we have to get rid of that dividing piece first, then we get rid of the multiplying. Or we could do it vice versa, that would work as well. But normally here, we're going to start by getting rid of the denominator. A big thing in math in general is that putting a fraction as a coefficient is really, let's call it a bit ugly. We do it because we sometimes have to, but when we're solving for it, it can become a little bit ugly. So we try to get rid of it, and to do that, we multiply by the denominator. Okay? And we multiply every term by the same denominator. So what that means is that in this case here, we have 4 on the bottom. So if we multiply this fraction by 4 and multiply this side by 4, it's going to cancel out the denominator. It's going to leave the numerator, so we're still going to be left with that 3x, but now we're going to cancel the denominator off. Okay. So as I said here, we multiply both sides by 4 to remove the denominator. Then, once that's finished, we divide both sides by 3 to isolate our variable. Okay, so in this case here, we've now multiplied them by 4. And so what this is going to look like, switch out the color here. Okay, so we're going to have 3x on that side. Try this again. 3x is going to be left on that side, and on the right-hand side, we're going to have 24. Now again, we've kept that 3x because all we did was multiply by 4. Okay, so all we did was multiply by 4, so we need to keep it on there because we haven't gotten rid of it yet. To get rid of that 3, we divide by 3, and we divide both sides by 3. And again, the 3's are going to now cancel out. And what we're going to be left with is just x all by itself. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. Therefore, our x value is 8. So here the multiple steps we have to do is we first have to multiply, then we need to divide. Okay, so we first have to multiply, then we need to divide. So let's solve for the missing variable. So in this case here, we have p that we're trying to solve for, and it's buried in this fraction. Okay, it's in the numerator of the fraction. So what we're going to do is, the first step we need to do is get rid of that denominator. We need to get rid of the 5, and so we're going to, that's not a 5. There we go, there's a 5, and we're going to multiply this side by 5. 5s are always a challenge to draw, just the way that the most works. So I'm glad I don't have to do too many of those. I try not to do too many of those. Okay, so what we're going to be left with then, those 5s are going to cancel out, and so we're left with 2p on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is 20. Okay, 4 times 5 is 20. The next step then is going to be to get the p all by itself, so we're going to divide this by 2, and we're going to divide this by 2. And when we do that, again, these 2's now cancel out. And when they cancel out, the p is left all by itself. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Therefore, p is equal to 10. Okay, so p is equal to 10. And that's how we solve those. So the first thing we need to do is multiply by the denominator because we need to get rid of that denominator. Now, if the variable is in the denominator, okay, then we need to get rid of the denominator. And the way we do that is we need to multiply, or sorry, this should be, multiply, or needs to be multiplied to both sides of the equation as well. And so we need to now multiply that variable to both sides of the equation so that we get rid of the denominator. Again, the key is to get rid of the denominator. Every single time we're trying to get rid of the denominator. Okay? That's our goal, get rid of the denominator every single time. So what that means is that now, and this is going to make look a little bit like a mess when we write it out here, we need to multiply by x and multiply by x. There we go. We're multiplying by x. Now I can think of just a little dot, right? We multiply, little dot, okay, little dot. We're multiplying by x. What does this look like when we do that? Well, multiplying by x means that it's going to cancel out on the left-hand side. So the left-hand side, what we're going to have is we're going to have 4 all by itself. And the right-hand side is 2 times x, which is 2x. Okay, so we've actually now almost made it look worse, but in fact, it's now possible that we can solve for it. So at this point now, we can now get x by itself by dividing by 2. Okay, so now we're actually working on the other side, and we're going to divide by 2. So we're going to divide this side by 2 to get rid of that, and we're going to divide this side by 2, and that will simplify it off. So we're going to cancel it out, and then it's going to get x all by itself. So 4 divided by 2 is just 2. And when we divide 2 by 2, we get x all by itself. So therefore, x is equal to 2. So x is equal to 2. All right, let's now again solve for the missing variable. You'll notice here it is again in the denominator. Okay, and because it's in the denominator, we need to multiply by the denominator to get rid of it. So we're going to multiply now by not just h, but we're going to multiply by 5h. Okay, and we can do that. We're going to multiply by 5h to both sides because we can multiply by that entire term. And sometimes we'll have to do that. We could just multiply by h, and then we would multiply by 5 later, but we can actually do it all in one shot and multiply it all at the same time. So when we do that, our 5h is going to cancel out, and we're going to get 4 on this side here. And on the other side, we're going to do 5h times 8. And when we do that, we actually multiply the coefficient by the constant. And so this is going to become 40h. It's going to become 40h. Now, at this point, we again still want to get h all by itself. So at this point here, we need to divide both sides by 40. And when we do that, we do 4 divided by 40, and that's going to be 0.1. And the other side is going to be h, just all by itself. Okay, so h is then equal to 0.1. So to make this work, h has to be 0.1. Okay, so h has to be 0.1. Now again, this is when we have just a fraction here or just a coefficient. But what happens if we have to if we have more than just that fraction in front? Well, there are 2 different ways to do this. The easy way is to multiply or to get rid of the 2 first and then do all the rest of the work. Okay, that is the easy way. The other way is to multiply by 7 first to get rid of the denominator. Now, when you multiply by 7, you actually have to and I'm going to do it the not so I'll do it the harder way first. We'll go through that first. If we multiply this by 7, we have to multiply this by 7, and we have to multiply this by 7. And so when we do that, what we're going to get, again, we have to multiply every term by 7. Very important that we multiply every term by 7. And so what we get then is 3x all by itself. Let me try this again here. We get 3x all by itself. And now we're going to be adding 14, and this is going to equal to 21. Now, in this case, now we can kind of do the rest of the work. And again, it's doing the same thing, but we just have to remember that we have to multiply it to every single piece. Okay? It doesn't actually change the answer. The only thing it does is it makes a little bit more work because we have to multiply by another piece. If we were to subtract 2 first, we would get exactly this here. We get 3x is equal to 7. That's what we would get there. And then at this point here, we can then divide by 3, divide this side by 3, and we're going to come up with our final answer of x equals 7 over 3, or this would be 2.33333 repeated. But if we leave it at 7 over 3, it just keeps it a little bit neater. Now, I'd like you to work on questions 6 and 7. Get those done. Again, complete that fraction. Get rid of the fraction by multiplying by the denominator.